Morning. Welcome to the Monday meeting of the BOCC. You just go right into our reviews and I'll turn it over.
Okay, good morning. Kathy Funk-Baxter, Finance Director. I'll invite Joseph up. We're going to have, first department we're looking at is the museum. And the museum does not have any revenues for the county, but they only have expenses. So that's why you don't see a revenue chart for them. And their only expense basically is primarily their personnel, and they are on track with target to budget. And it's a personnel of 1, Joseph, our director of the museum, and very little in the way of supplies budget. And then services are primarily the internal services departments, and they're on track for budget. So I don't anticipate anything on my end as far as budget corrections or amendments.
Okay.
So I'll turn it over to Joseph.
Thank you, Kathy. Joseph Gavednik reporting for the museum. I'm the museum director at the Cowlitz County Historical Museum. I included a brief PowerPoint slide because at the last meeting, I wanted to have an opportunity to explain the relationship between the Cowlitz County operation of the museum and the Cowlitz County Historical Society, which is the other half of the partnership. As Kathy explained, the budget with the county is for personnel, and also the county pays for the maintenance of the building, which is a county-owned asset as well. The society pays for 3 part-time staff, a curator, office manager, and educator, program person, as well as does the exhibits, owns the artifacts, has done a capital campaign about 20 years ago to expand the building, and has a lease on the building to operate and maintain a museum until 2052. As the museum director for the county, my employer, I'm also the executive director of the nonprofit Cowlitz County Historical Society. So the nonprofit society staff do report to me, and I have authorization to access funds for the society to benefit the museum. So this is a wonderful relationship that the county has with this department, with the Historical Society. And generally, it's about close to a 50-50 match. Sometimes it fluctuates a little bit. And you'll see in the next slide here, I have some bullet points here that just very briefly illustrate the relationship. So the county owns the building. The county takes care of the facilities. The custodial services are subcontracted. The utilities for the building are covered in the lease. And the in-kind rental lease is through 2052. Museum director's compensation, and then the phone and the computers are covered by the county, which amounts to about 45% of the operating costs for the museum. And then on the other side, coming in from the nonprofit 501c3 Historical Society are the staff, the exhibits, public programming, which includes adult, youth, family. It's about 55% of the operating costs. It depends on how which accountant you want to talk to and how they want to structure the in-kind rent allocation. And then we have about a little over 37,000 artifacts and over 1 million images in the archives. And like I had mentioned before, the society did a fundraising project to expand the footprint of the building by about 100%, actually doubled the size of it in 2003, which is where the lease agreement originated from. And we can go to the next slide here. I guess let's go back just one more. I just want to show this slide. The picture here is the Historical Society founder's roll. The society was founded in 1949, and then a relationship with the county in 1953, where the museum was housed in the 3rd floor of the annex building here. And then in 1979, the museum moved to the current building at 405 Allen Street. And in 1975, prior to that, is when I believe the county hired its first museum director to oversee these operations. So there's been a long-standing relationship with the county and the society helping to support the operations of the museum. We can go to the next slide here, and I'll talk about the facilities side. So we had a damage that was done to our ceiling a couple years ago, and I want to thank facilities for coming in and addressing that this year. So we have the hallway ceiling has been fixed from a leakage from the HVAC condensation pan that was during a heat wave back in 2021. We do get continued graffiti. The image of that utility box at Academy and Fifth, that was done last week, and I want to applaud facilities. When I put a work order in, they are on it pretty quick when it comes to graffiti removal. So I know that they're very busy with all the different projects going on, but I appreciate them addressing the graffiti. We are talking with the youth services, which does some landscaping work, and we're going to be pulling back the ivy. They did come in, pull the ivy off the side of the building a couple months ago, and they removed the ivy that was growing up and strangling the trees in the parking lot. Now they're going to come in and create about a 2-foot wide path around the building to keep rodents and other pests from wanting to congregate around the side. In fact, just yesterday I saw a rodent run across the aisle. So the pest management company did recommend removing that cover so that they stay away and stay in the bushes and away from the building. And I also want to thank the county for putting in the new lighting system in the parking lot. Commissioner Dahl and I had talked about this last spring about ways of mitigating evening activities that are going on around the museum grounds. There's unfortunately drug activity and things like that are happening. The new lights have been installed, and I'm very curious to see how they address the issue as we go into the darker days of fall and winter. There's usually seasonal activity changes at the museum from summer and winter. Winter time is when people will want to congregate a little bit more often at the museum because there's spots of shelter from the rain. These lights here, I'm very interested to see how this works. We have noticed generally less activity this summer, but to a certain degree, that's also seasonal. But the lights are very bright. They really illuminate the whole area around that north side of the building. And I thank the county for putting those in. The picture there of that bottle is a needle I found last week in front of the museum, just to show that we still do have occasional activities going on it's just part of being right off of Allen Street in Kelso, I think. Next slide, please. We'll talk about some other stuff, some programming things that have happened. At the Cowlitz County Fair, we interacted with over 1,500 people at the Bush Cabin, and we did a first-time jail fundraiser as a beta test to see how that would work. And we locked up City of Longview's Mayor Spencer Boudreau, and there he is in Cowlitz County's first jail. And so that was a neat event to try out. And now I've got a lot of people that want to participate in this jail lockup, where we match different people together, and then people online can donate money to lock somebody up if they want to. And it's a new experience. We hadn't had access into that building until last year when we did a cleanup of the Bush Bush Cabin grounds, and we're able to open up the rusty bars and get in there. So it's now a new spot for photo ops. We had a first-time downtown Kelso partnership with the Beers, Bites, or Bites, Brews, and Brothels, which is part of the Kelso Business and Community Association that organized it. Sold-out event. There's been interest in having another tour, and so we went around downtown and showed off all the buildings that were still in existence where brothels had existed, or the locations where that happened. And it was very well received by the sold out audience. Of course, our First Thursday programs are going strong. This year, honestly, we are at or probably exceeding the 2019 levels of attendance. Every program we've had on First Thursday has been mostly filling up the room. And, last year, sometimes I cross my fingers when we have a program, how many people are going to show up. And this year, every single one has been strongly attended. So I'm very pleased to see that. This summer, we also had a partnership with the Children's Discovery Museum, which, as you all know, is relocating to the Cowlitz school, and they're closed right now. And so during the couple months of their closure, we opened up our temporary gallery to have their exhibit so that they would still have a public interface with the community. Also, we've done this before about 6 years ago when they moved, and it brings in a whole nother audience into the museum. We've had a lot of families and children in the museum this whole summer. I'd say more so than when we did this 6 years ago. So that's been a really good partnership. And then the picture there with the Kelso police car, that was during the ice cream social we did to kick off the partnership. It was during the summertime. And I invited first responder vehicles to come to our parking lot. We had free ice cream donated by Baskin Robbins to feed everybody that showed up for the free ice cream social. We had about 7 or 8 vendors there with tables. It was beautiful weather, so they were out in the parking lot. And we had about 200 people show up for that event. And then next slide, please. And then back to other museum stuff. We have one educator who's out there in the school districts doing a traveling trunk program. She goes into the schools. It's the picture in the top right shows her there. That's Danielle Robbins. She does phenomenal work. I should actually film this sometime so that you can see her in action. I volunteered and helped her out before, and it's just amazing to see how she gets these kids just pumped up about local history. And that program, she hit the 1,000 kid mark last year, broke it, and now she believes she's above 1,200 kids. She's basically about maxed out and operating to capacity with what she can do with the programs. She's also expanded the programs so that they can go into junior high school level. Usually the programs are geared towards elementary school kids, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. And now she's expanding it into junior high school level. We have, I mentioned the artifacts we have. That's our new storage, our new compacting storage units. And then Bill Watson, our curator, and myself both received awards from the Kelso School District and the Washington Museum Association for our work that we did last year. So we were pleased to see that. And I think we're on our last slide, or that we might have. Yep, that's it. I think I'm going to open up for questions if you all have any questions. I also am going to do a more detailed description of activities that have been going on at the meeting next month, the department head and elected official meeting.
So one of the things that the Historical Society does is to collect donations or artifacts. What's been the most interesting addition to your collection this past year?
See, most of those go through Bill, so sometimes things slide through that I don't find out about until the end of the year. So at the beginning of the year, our very first Thursday program in January is what we call staff picks. So we pick our favorite artifacts that came in the year before. And so that's usually when I see the whole list. As far as stuff that is coming in, you kind of got me at a loss a little bit, because I'm trying to think of the most exciting object that came in, and usually they go through Bill. So you'll find out in January. Come to our first Thursday program. I'll have probably 3 or 4 of them picked out.
Good.
for that exercise jail fundraising event where people would call in and say, I want Joseph Kovetny to be in jail, that kind of thing. I think that's an excellent idea. It should be implemented though in the new year, just because the new year boundary would be nice.
I was a competitor in that one, actually, in this one that we tried out.
Oh,
But,
you were?
but apparently, Mr. Boudreau got the most donations.
So you haven't told us how much you were able to bring in with that event.
Oh, that was brought in a little over $500 for an inaugural event that we were lightly pushing it just because we were testing the technology on how to receive the donations, but it all worked smoothly. So our plan is to expand it, and I think it'll bring in much more, especially with some of the interest. I've got some other people that want to participate and publicize it.
Yeah, I made a note here and I wasn't sure I was going to ask about it, but I recall a few years back when I was in high school that I really enjoyed having people come and speak in an assembly, and I would think that's very much what Danielle does, but it seemed like no focus on the upper division.
Oh, like the high school level?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's what she's wanting to build up, because the school curriculum in the state, if I'm understanding it correctly, Daniel tries to keep up on it when they update their requirements. And there is now some historical requirement that's going, I believe, through high school, and she's developing programs for that. But I can report more on that. Actually, I'll be meeting with Commissioner Weber before you all meet again, and I can give some more details about where she's at on that program.
That's a good thing. Yeah, we need more excitement of knowledge.
Just out of curiosity, I was back in Missouri, 2-3 weeks ago. I have some family from there and have a niece that was wanting to learn more. And so we dealt with 2 different historical societies, one in Eldon, one in Versailles. And it was so amazing to me the amount of information they had from do we deal in that too? I mean, we're talking like copies of old deeds and pictures and newspaper articles and just family related stuff.
So we have a lot of material, and like I mentioned, we have over 1 million images in our archives. And so if you come to want to research anything, we have people that come in quite often to ask about an old house that they bought, and they want to see if there's pictures of it or other information. So we do have some of those records. We have a lot of cemetery records too. So if people are wanting to research cemeteries. So we are in a repository and archive of all kinds of community information. And then with between the museum and I'd say public works and building and planning and in the auditor's office, we probably all have that combined information. We have a lot of times we had people from Public Works come to our office to look at old maps, and sometimes they have old maps that we want to look at.
I just found it quite amazing, really, that they'd have these. You say, okay, you want books on this family or whatever, and they're able to pull all this stuff out and go, wow.
And we have lots of family histories in our collection. And then our historical quarterly has an index. And in fact, Commissioner Weber has been actively working on this index and updates it periodically. And so you can look up if there's a specific family you're interested in. If they're mentioned in our historical quarterly, which has been published since 1959, it'll be there.
Yeah. I think that's a tool I wasn't totally aware of, but my niece obviously had been working with these places and was, so,
Yeah, if you go into Bill's area, the curatorial workroom area, it's an easy place to spend a lot of time in research. More fun than the internet, I'd say, because you actually physically have stuff there.
Yeah.
More fun than the internet?
More fun than the internet, because it's three-dimensional. It's not a screen.
What do you do about the Candy Crush urge?
Fortunately, I never got into those Candy Crusher games.
I don't know how to play. I have never played it, but
It's weird. That's one thing. I never got into video games. In my generation, so many kids my age, that were my age were all into video games, and I somehow it just I was too busy digging in the dirt and putting chicken bones in the ground and then digging them up the day later, pretending I was an archaeologist.
oh, I bet you do the crossword. Yeah, online.
I haven't done those either.
Yeah.
You haven't done any crossword
Ch-
puzzles online?
No.
Chances are you travel the Oregon Trail a lot.
Yeah.
That's one of the more, used to be one of the more popular video
Oh, okay.
games, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We appreciate what you do over there, at least
Yeah, thank
certainly
you.
I do. I think that's a great asset for our community. So
It-
thanks
it-
for your work on it.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's a wonderful public interface. So many people come in, and people from out of town, we're often the first representation of the county when people come in, and we have a table with all kinds of information about local attractions. So I appreciate that you all value the work that we do, and that we're an asset to our community.
I've always appreciated the historical exhibit on the history of the county seats that is down in display cases in the main entrance to this
Mhm.
building. Yeah. In fact, old keys to the jail, I think.
Yes, they are. I think they're there.
Yeah.
And I'll follow up, Commissioner Mortensen, on Danielle's development with the high school programs. I'll connect with Dennis, and he'll
Yeah.
report back to you all.
And the commissioner hasn't tried to break into your building?
Not yet. Not since the last time.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Thank you very much, commissioners.
I had forgotten about that.
I didn't. Okay.
Okay, next, we're going to go over the coroner's budget management review. And we'll go back to,
Good morning. Hello.
okay, so the budgets, the coroner's financial review on the revenue side. Their primary revenue is, and of course, this is from the general fund. So their revenue coming in is their reimbursements, their state reimbursements for autopsies. We are actually ahead of where we had budgeted. So we may need a slight budget amendment for the rest of the year. But I think they only do billings twice a year to the state. And then for goods and services, I believe that budget is primarily where they have, they charge for use of their facilities. And so those, both miscellaneous and goods and services are smaller budgets, but I don't anticipate any issues on those two budgets needing any kind of budget amendment or anything. So.
So you went a little more quickly than my feeble brain can.
Okay,
handle.
sorry.
The other financing, can you address that again?
On the revenue side?
Yeah. Am I looking at the revenue
No,
side?
I think you're,
am
I don't
looking
have
at the
anything. Are you looking at coroner?
Are you looking at my report or are you looking at her general? this one.
I thought we were talking about budget, man. Oh, that's elections.
I think you're
Whatever
on
hap-
elections.
There you go.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to,
Are you missing the corners?
There it is.
I thought I saw coroners. That's elections, that's elections. Ah. Dana's fault. She hit it on me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you,
Sorry.
Armand. No
Yeah.
wonder I was not tracking.
Okay.
Okay, and there was a comment about being paid by the state for the
Yeah,
autopsies,
the
right?
intergovernmental is primarily the revenue that comes from the state reimbursement for autopsies performed.
Now I'm tracking. Thank you.
Okay.
So is there another billing going out this year, or did we already have our two?
Yeah, no, so we've received, and I'll get into that, but 42,000 to 4480 has already been received from the first part of the year. So at the end of this year, we'll get the second reimbursement. So
Yeah.
we do two a year. So I submitted for the first half of the year in the end of June. So July, I submitted for that, and that's where the 42,000 to 4480 came from. And then February 15th is when I submit for the second half of the year.
Yep. And this revenue is on an accrual basis that we're presenting.
Accrual, I mean, you're anticipating?
Right. This 80,801 is the receipts for this year, so far this year.
So that's actually received?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So
We're
if-
going to get one more, we'll
yeah,
get one more
if the second
booking.
reimbursement is
Gonna be
closer, similar
accrual.
to the first,
Right.
you're gonna bring in more than what you
Right.
expected, right?
Yep. And that's what I'm saying. I believe we're going to bring in more than the 96,590 that we have budgeted.
I don't know if it's good to say, but it's been a busy year. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but
Mhm. Okay, on the expense side, the primary expense for the coroner's office is their personnel, and personnel's below our budget target, but it's above prior year expenses. And there were a couple of positions that were added later in the year, last year. And so that's the reason for that. And then their services are above our target, but that's because most of that relates to internal service billings that are done at the beginning of the year. And then their capital is above our target because there was a one-time purchase, and I believe that was a grant-funded piece of equipment. So,
Yeah, which we should be almost ready to get
was
the
that, was that
the gurney, yeah.
yeah.
And I should have given you a picture of it.
Yeah.
Not that you care, but it's worked so wonderfully for us. It's been amazing, and we haven't had it very long. So that's why we haven't been reimbursed yet, is because we just got it outfitted in the truck. We've only had it for maybe a couple weeks now. So, and so the billings for all of those are still going out. So I have to have all of those paid for before I can submit all the receipts
Reimbursement,
for
yeah.
reimbursement. Yes. So those will be going out here pretty soon. So we should be seeing that that reimbursement. I'm not exactly sure how long it takes to get that back, but we should be getting that here.
Did we ever get the video or the stuff fixed for you? We did.
Yes, there's still some glitches IT and stuff is still working on, and
Parts of it.
yeah, but we have the the camera system in the autopsy suite is working, and we're still learning how to use that, but that's been actually pretty nice. There's other things that are way above, what we use. But we're kind of starting to tinker with that and figure those things out. So, yeah. Some of the other portions of it, like I said, IT is still trying to work on and figure that type of stuff out. But yeah, some of it's working and some of it is not where it should be. So, but
And that's all I have for the expenditure side in their budget. Turn it over to Dana.
okay. So I just, I pulled some stats, just to kind of give you guys an update on everything going on over there. As of, I forgot to change it. As of today, the 16th, September 16th, we are at 817 cases. As of September 16th of last year, we were at 797. So we're about 20 over. We've had quite a few weeks where we've just been, maybe 3 or 4 a day. And then there might be a few days where there's maybe just one. So we get hit pretty hard on some weeks, and some weeks aren't as bad, but as you can see, the numbers are going up. Lately we've been seeing a higher amount and a steady increase of elderly deaths. I'm kind of looking into some aspects of that. And I'm going to have kind of some stats on that. I'm kind of working on that, but that's in the works right now. So autopsies, we're at 58. We have 3 going on right now today. And last year at the end of the year, we had 81. So we're kind of right in, we have 3.5 months left of this year. So we're kind of right in the, area of hitting that number. Drug overdoses. As of today, we've had 40 drug overdose deaths with 9 pending. And I think when I looked, there might only be 1 or 2 of those that may not be drug related. So without those 9 pending ones, there's 29 fentanyl and 20 methamphetamine. So if you look at that with, say, 47, 48 of those deaths, drug overdoses, we've already hit our mark from last year. Last year's total for the end of the year was 49 drug overdoses. And even if all 9 of those pending ones were already at last year's mark. And last year's mark, for those 49, there was 42 fentanyl and 34 methamphetamines, which was only 7 non-fentanyl drug overdoses. And we still have 3.5 months left of this year.
Is it appropriate to assume then that deaths from cocaine and heroin are not?
No, I didn't. So I didn't break down all of those because I didn't have time to go through everything. There are cocaine. Like last year, I had them broke down. Last year there was probably, I don't know, cocaine is going up. We haven't seen as many this year. I think there's only maybe 2 cocaine related deaths. Methadone is going up in the drug overdoses.
Methadone.
Yeah.
Methadone, yeah. So last year we saw a couple of those. This year we've seen more. We currently have one that I know of, that's in the pending stage.
Yeah.
But we'll come back with methadone.
It's interesting, Chief Huda gave a report at last week's Longview City Council meeting, and he talked about starting to see cocaine again, and he hadn't seen cocaine for a while. And
Well,
he
last
yeah.
year I was saying that cocaine
Yeah,
is
his
making a
report
comeback.
was from 23, yeah.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and he also talked about the methadone that they're seeing, so.
Yeah, yeah. So which is kind of crazy because, methadone is supposed to, they're giving out the methadone to help you get off of the
Yeah.
stuff, but people are overdosing on methadone too, because they're not getting the other drugs, so they're just using more of that. And we're still getting the overdoses. It's just on the medication that they're giving to get off of the drugs. So they're doing it one way or another, unfortunately.
So that's the typical approach where they get a week supply of methadone, say, because.
Or a
one way-
month or whatever. It depends on where they are ranked. And I don't know, this is just what I've heard is if you're on, I don't know how to say it, if you're on the good list, if you're taking it correctly and, if you've been coming in and all that, they'll send you home with more. When I was here years ago, I collected in one, the guy was selling his methadone. And so I collected probably a whole month or more worth of methadone in his case. So some people will be able to go home with way more methadone than just, taking it and going home with a certain amount. They'll be able to have a good amount with them. And then when that happens, sometimes they either go out and sell it or they're sharing it with their friends or, yeah,
Yeah.
or
In
they're
the-
doing more than they need
In the
to.
methadone case, there's not any external importation, or I should say illegal importation of methadone, right? The only thing that's really coming in illegally is fentanyl, meth, and coke.
Yeah, the methadone is given to the ones that have the addiction so that hopefully they get off
So
the addiction.
that's the one simple place where you can actually know where the problem originates.
Yeah,
So I assume there are investigations there. Not that it's your
yeah,
domain.
I don't.
So in the
yeah.
fentanyl deaths and the methamphetamine deaths, are you finding indications that they're also using heroin and cocaine as well as a cocktail, or they're?
Well,
or is
still,
that-
we're seeing a mixture. Fentanyl is mixed with most everything. We're still seeing just fentanyl deaths, but a lot of fentanyl methamphetamine, cocaine. A lot of these are also, when they come back in the toxicology, THC is in there. So I don't know, like I still tell everybody, if you're, doing marijuana, if you're not getting it from a legal place, then you have no idea if it's mixed with fentanyl because everything's mixed with fentanyl. So, but the majority of the cases that we're getting back have THC in them also. So, yeah. But yes, cocaine, like I said, I'm not sure how many cocaine we've probably had, maybe a handful with cocaine in them this year. But yeah, everything still seems to be mixed. There's very few that are just one drug.
Yeah.
It's usually a mixture. And we've also seen quite a few that are prescription drugs and stuff where they're just overtaking them. As to last year, I don't think we had any just prescription drug overdoses. They were all illegal overdoses.
Are these primarily IV
No.
ingested, if you will?
So the majority of them, a lot of them we're not seeing with hypodermic needles anymore. A lot of them are, so with methamphetamines, yes, we'll see that. But with the fentanyl is coming in pill form and powder form, stuff like that. So a lot of that is just ingested or, with powder.
Yeah.
They could be snorting it or they could be smoking it or,
And the age group, I was surprised to learn about it, I don't know, maybe it's a year ago now, that the
in the
50-year-olds
70s and,
were kind of the peak.
oh yeah, and it well into the 70s and 80s. We still get overdoses into that, so.
Darn
Now,
baby.
how did you distinguish, like, if you're 18 years old and you're doing drugs, is clearly, statistically, it's not going to be an attempt to commit suicide, it's an attempt to play. What if
Yeah.
you're 75 or 80 and you're doing drugs? I'm wondering if that's just not an easy out. So how do we know between an
Well,
overdose and a
Well,
suicide?
we look at the amount in their system too. So that's usually, so we do a lot of stuff. We look at their history. We look at witness statements. We look at, how they've been, has there ever been suicidal ideations before or attempts, stuff like that. And then also the amount in their system. If there's like an enormous amount in
Right,
their
right.
system and it's
Then
super
it's
high,
suicide.
then yeah.
This is interesting. So it's a plausible inference. But I'm still surprised you said, I mean, the 75-year-olds, are they new users or are they just long-term survivors of abuse their whole life? I mean, I would have,
Well,
does that seem strange to you?
I think you have a variety of things going on. You have, you have our economy. You have people that, are depressed, they're alone. There could be, certain situations where they've been drug addicts before, or they have been their whole life, or they, they've just sunk,
Right.
and
Okay.
they're financially, their finances are, they're going to lose their home or whatever, and they're just depressed and they get into the drug scene, or they're homeless, or, there's just such an array of situations out there. It's really sad.
Can they use this type of stuff for like pain management?
Yes. Well,
as it gets harder for
fentanyl
people to get
is an actual drug that they use, in the hospital and
hospitals.
stuff like that. And it's a pain management. Yeah.
That's really a good question because,
You really clamp down on some of that.
well, pain management is something just about all the old people have to deal with. And then a lot of old people in pain are not in the best of health. So
Yeah.
what's the average lifetime now? 75 or 76. And it would take a little less of something to push somebody over, I would think, when they're not in good health.
Yeah. Well, and then so then that raises another question of if you have people that are on pain meds and they can't get pain meds anymore, then and I have seen that before too, is they're out seeking on the streets for opiates. So they get Oxy from somebody or whatever. We see that all the time. So they get those drugs from somebody. Now we have the street fentanyl. So, and that's that's a pain medicine, so. But the street drug is way more toxic, way more potent, and way more deadly than the one that they gave you at the hospital, of course. So you go out seeking, something for that, and you get it, and you have no idea what the strength of it, for one, and you do it, and that's all there is.
That goes along with what I was saying. Sometimes you do more harm by driving it underground.
Yeah.
Is there clean oxy out there?
I don't know. We honestly have not seen too many of those at all. Like I said, we've seen a few prescription medications or oxycodone or whatever overdoses, but trying to think, of all the ones that I was looking at. I am not sure. There may have only been one oxycodone related overdose that I can think of off the top of my head this year. So that's almost not even in the mix
So
currently.
8 years ago or so, we were hearing the statistics that oxy or all that was
The street,
increasing, and now that's kind of reversed.
Yeah.
So the amount of prescriptions being written have gone down in quantities. They just don't prescribe as much anymore. So that's
That-
one way of controlling it, I suppose.
I guess. And
forcing them into the street.
Yeah,
so I guess those ones just aren't getting into the hands of people that are out there selling them on the street. Now they're just selling the illegal ones that are more deadly.
yeah.
Well, I know that it's more anecdotal, but I'm not surprised that you're finding more people in their 70s and 80s seeking pain relief. I have backaches and pains that I never used to have. I'm in my 70s, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not surprising,
Yeah.
I guess.
In these last few months, I got 2 pains.
But ours is going away.
It could go way faster if we had some fentanyl. MVA stands for?
Motor vehicle accidents.
Oh.
So I just threw in a few other things. So currently we're at 11 motor vehicle accidents and 22 suicides. Now, 2 of those suicides have been drug overdoses. I believe it's been two of the drug overdoses have been suicides. So, and then 23, there was 17 motor vehicle accidents and 28 suicides. So we're only 6 shy, and we're getting into our bad months. When the clouds come in, when depression sets in, when the holidays set in, all of that stuff in the next 3.5 months. So we're only 6 shy of that.
Do you see that in the history? Like
Oh,
if
yeah.
you go back over years, you'll see the blip starts to go up.
Oh, yeah.
and-
Yep. We have different months that
October to
certain
March,
things in.
the
Mhm.
rainy season.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because it's, we don't have the sun outside, we don't have all that stuff. So you get more depression here, and then people are cooped up inside and all of that stuff. So just like when, with COVID and people were cooped up inside, you saw more DVs, more, homicides, more, all kinds of stuff, alcohol, drug-related stuff, because they had nothing else to do. So,
There's a lot of cleansing with alcohol.
yeah.
Do you see any change in I understand the numbers of suicides, but the change in last year or the year before, I can't remember which, it seemed like we had some school kids.
Yeah.
Is the age getting younger, or are we still seeing some of that, or?
No, we're still seeing some of that.
And I know you guys were trying to
Not-
reach out to some of the
Yeah.
schools and deal with.
Not as many,
some of
and
that.
yeah. And we've done a few, outreach things. We've been asked to come to the schools. We've done a couple of the Kelso school things where we've gone over there for the, they have the high, now I can't think of it.
Yeah, they have that.
High
I
cap.
know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and
Yeah.
so we've gone over there. We've been asked to do the Children's Museum thing, so we've had a little thing set up over there. And then just a couple weeks ago, they had the first overdose awareness thing over at the Civic Circle. I was asked to go over there and speak. And so I did that, and that was really good. They seemed to have a good turnout on that one. And I got a lot of good feedback on that. I had people reaching out saying that they were very appreciative of that, and they wanted more information and stuff too. So
Okay,
that was good. So I think it's really important just to get that stuff out there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
agreed.
but with the suicides and stuff, we've had a few younger ones this year. I think last year the number was higher, but one is too many. So,
Yeah, those are the most concerning.
yeah. Any other questions on overdoses or drug stuff?
No?
No? Okay.
Okay.
So I know our revenues have kind of changed a little bit. We did really good last year on our bringing other autopsies and stuff in. We had a lot of other counties utilizing us. This year, it's kind of dropped. A lot of the east side has been utilizing an agency out of Las Vegas. So they seem to be a little less expensive for them. And then they've all kind of teamed up together and they fly them in and then they take care of like all their autopsies. So we're not seeing them utilize us as much. We still have Pacific County and Wahkiakum County that we're using. But as from, last year we did 40 out of county, autopsies.
Yeah.
And that brought in the county quite a bit of revenue for the use of the facility. As to this year, we've only had 12, from the two counties. So that's kind of, taken a dive, which is really good for the other counties that they can get those services a lot quicker. But for us, hasn't been as good. But we do have a few other options that we're looking at. I've had some others come to me regarding some options for maybe something like that, not autopsies, but some other things. And then I'll be probably talking to you guys about that more once I find out a little bit more about that. But it seems like a good opportunity for the county to utilize the facility that we have over there for other things. Also, there's a new RCW out there, 361630 had been changed starting January 1st, 2025. It prohibits the prosecutor coroner counties in Washington from being a prosecutor coroner county. I don't know if you guys have heard that or not. So basically that tells the prosecutor coroner counties, which is on population, so 40,000 and under our prosecutor coroner, that they can't be the prosecutor and the coroner at the same time anymore. It eliminates that starting the first of the year. So either that county, which is also Pacific County and Wahkiakum County, are both prosecutor coroner counties. So that eliminates their counties from being both. So that puts them in a position that they have to either look at a closer county to do an interlock agreement to share that, or to appoint a coroner into their county. Well, that raises a lot of issues for them, you know, population wise, all of that, financial wise stuff for them. It's going to be really hard for them. Also, for the stipulations on coroner offices and all of that, they have training that they have to pay for. They have to be accredited. They have to, all of that type of stuff. Financially, it's going to be very cumbersome for them. So, Wahkiakum County has approached me a while back regarding an interlock agreement with them. So we've been looking at that, seeing how we can work that out. That would mean I would become their coroner also. Cowlitz County would absorb Wahkiakum County, which I will be talking to you guys more about once we kind of figure all of that out.
Is that, they're a statute county, so don't you have to live in Cowlitz County to be the coroner for Cowlitz County? And
Mhm.
doesn't that apply to?
It
to
would be
Wahkiakum?
we would have to do an interlock agreement with them.
Right, but that would be
So-
violating the RCW.
I'm not exactly sure how
Okay.
that, like I said.
I think it's a
we've
good
been-
idea, and
Yeah,
I think we should share as much as we
Yeah,
possibly can. At least that's how I feel.
yeah,
no,
and Dan Bigelow and I have been going over that, and you know, he's the prosecutor part, and he's a very super smart guy. So he's like trying to get all this, and because some of the other counties have been looking at, you know, well, can't they just appoint me, you know? And then they've looked into that, and no, per this, you know, they're like, no, they can't just appoint you back as the coroner, because this is exactly what this is saying, is the prosecutor can't be the coroner anymore. So they can't just appoint you as the coroner to appoint a coroner. So I'm sure Dan's probably looked into that somehow. But yeah, I'm not sure. We're still looking at all the other things.
Mhm.
And with Wahkiakum County, they're like a little under 5,000 population, and they get like about 10 deaths a year or so on average. So there's multiple ways we've talked about how we can do that. And I don't think it would be too much more on our side, because really the distance there is no more than us going to say Cougar or something like that either. So we've been looking at multiple things, and we've helped him out all these years anyways. I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference.
So in anticipating what may happen when you propose the interlocal agreement that comes to us, we need to make sure the Cowlitz County prosecuting attorney has been involved in the
Yes,
development of it.
and he is.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all,
Okay.
and risk and everything. I've been kind of everybody's involved in that, kind of looking at everything. So, yeah.
It almost feels like one of those things from the state that we're here to solve something, but we created a bigger problem on the other side.
Yeah, and they're all in a scramble, because with them, they're so small, and funding wise, it's like you're gonna appoint a coroner, but it's gonna be kind of like a part-time coroner. So they're gonna be like 24/7, but on part-time basis, and it's kind of like, how do you really do that
Yeah.
anyway? So.
Creates a burden for them for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, the way Dan was looking at it is, you know, our office is accredited, we're all established. All of, you know, we've done everything here. They've already worked, you know, they work with us. We do their autopsies here. It's just, you know, figuring out number wise and stuff like that. And it'll be a little bit more for them, yes, in the beginning and stuff, but in the long run, it would actually save them
And
money
Pacific
too.
County is probably working with what, Grace Harbor County?
I think from what I hear, Pacific County was planning on um, appointing a coroner.
Oh, they're on
So,
corner. Okay.
Yeah,
A little bit farther away. That's kind of tough to
Yeah.
have somebody on call out there.
yeah, exactly. So,
One last item.
Yeah.
Maybe to the earlier section. How are we doing on the contracts for the autopsy providers? We had, I forget the gentleman's name. I remember Dr. Laxima, but I don't remember.
Dr. Nelson, yeah, yeah.
We contracted him for up to a certain.
Yeah, up
number.
to 60.
Have we
So
reached that in
Um,
his case?
we have not reached that yet, but we still have 3.5 months left too. So
Are we
we're,
close enough that we will hit the 60?
we'll hit the 60.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're at the, what did I say? We were at 58, and that's because Dr. Luxina had done quite a few in the beginning because Dr. Nelson was in the hospital. So, Dr. Luxina is there for those type of times or whatever, but yeah, we'll reach our 60 by the time the end of the year hits, especially with what we're at, so.
Just occurred to me, you're probably not allowed to do an auto autopsy,
An auto autopsy?
right? In other
No.
words, Dr. Nelson in the hospital couldn't do an autopsy on himself.
Oh, no,
I'm
no.
I'm sorry, it's just a strange mind. I have to live with it.
You mean a Zoom autopsy?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So,
Okay.
any questions or anything that you can think of that might be of interest to you for me to look into statistic wise or whatever that,
I hope not to see you too soon,
yeah,
or is it the other way around? I hope you don't see me too soon.
yeah.
I think what you've been providing, I think we're good with, yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of a somber thing that we come in and discuss, but I enjoy the information and I enjoy the discussion, so I always appreciate it and thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, quick questions. How's the occupancy of the refrigeration capabilities? That was highly overbuilt at one point, but we thought it was the right thing to do.
No, it was a very good thing to do. I'd rather have too much space than not enough because there's times where, so in the cooler space, we can hold 44. We have 44 racks, and then not to mention tables that we can put in there. We can probably put 6 tables in there also. And we've had, we haven't had 2 capacity yet, knock on wood, but we've had it pretty full. And then when funeral homes get full and can't come pick their people up right away too, we tend to get pretty full pretty quick. So
Have you used the truck yet?
the truck
Yeah.
with the new gurney?
No, the truck with the,
Oh, you're talking about the trailer?
yeah, the trailer with
No.
all the cooling and all that.
No.
That's still plugged in the yard.
It's still in the yard, but we did, I had them put a plug in because there wasn't anything to plug it into.
No.
So I have gotten that, and I am looking at, so that might be in our budget for next year. You might see for our mass fatality structured plan that I'm working on. It doesn't have a generator on it. So we're looking at that. So that might be in for next year's budget. But I did,
That last one, could you repeat?
a generator for
Okay.
if we did need it, there's nothing to really power it for very long.
Public Works has one that's pretty nice that I think you can borrow.
Okay, well, I was talking to facilities and stuff, and they said that that there was one over there And Jason was going to be looking at like cost and stuff to have one actually
Yeah.
mounted on there if needed. So that was just something I was looking into, but we do, there was no place to plug it into. So we did go ahead and get one taken care of on the building. So then it's behind our fence and where it's secured and all of that stuff. So it doesn't have to be anywhere else. So that's been taken care of. Little things like that, looking at little things that weren't done that needed to be done. Yeah, and that was one thing that we didn't have. So we went ahead and finished that. Yeah, we did have to use the generator for the first time when the power went out. Although nobody knew how to use it. Facilities was amazing though. Came over and they were, took them a while, but yeah. We now know how to use it. So that's good.
It's the best facility in the state, isn't it?
Well,
Not the largest, but the best.
yeah, well, I think it's a pretty good facility.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, thanks, Dana.
thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Carolyn's not in town on elections, or is she? She's online? Okay,
I'm here.
we are.
Yeah, I have their financial statement. And they have two accounts. They have their elections and then they have their election reserve. So the first one is elections. And their intergovernmental currently exceeds budget on the revenue side, which that's good. So we'll probably propose an amendment on the next budget amendment hearing.
You know, it's hard for me to pay attention when I see that the clock behind the auditor
Uh-oh.
is in another time zone of some kind. So I'm thinking there's something wrong in this. Is this totally staged?
Yes, it is. I don't want to brag, but yes, it is.
All right, I apologize.
It's okay. So on goods and services, they're, as far as tracking for budget, comparing it to budget, they're a little bit below, but that's because the budget was based, the target is based upon an even 12 months. And so that's, but I'm not sure that there's an issue there because we still have some additional elections occurring in the latter part of this year. And then otherwise, there isn't, on the other financing sources, this budget is primarily a transfer from the general fund, which will probably occur a little bit later this year. We wait for the auditor to request that transfer.
I wouldn't use the word primarily.
Okay.
The county
Yes.
has a general fund contribution, which is actually very small in odd years. And our entire budget is funded mostly by, or completely by, those actively involved in elections. And then the cities share allocation for voter registration. So county has a share, but it's not primarily funded by the county. And what you're seeing on my revenue right now, the only elections that we have billed for this year is the presidential primary. And we bill for that simply because the state mandates that we bill within 30 days. Otherwise, we add all of our expenses for the entire year. And each of those elections, even if they occur in the spring, they share a portion of those yearly expenses. So we do that at the very end of the year So you're not going to see my revenue until late December or even early January.
Can you clarify that a bit more?
So the only revenue that you're seeing right now is for the presidential primary that occurred in February this year, and that small $6,500 grant that I got. So the rest of the revenue that, isn't there, that isn't appearing, you won't see that revenue come in until the very end of December or beginning of January, because we can't charge those costs out until we have the whole year's invoices.
That's the part that I find a bit strange. So if I'm a municipality and I had an election in the spring, I may not know how much I'm going to have to pay you until the end of the year.
That's exactly it. And that's
What I thought I
because,
heard. Ouch.
yeah, well, they're used to it. So this is how it's written in the BAR's manual and in state law. So they're used to it. And it's specific. I can't make up expenses. Say something happened and maybe there was a disaster like a flood and our equipment was damaged. If we needed to replace something like that, that was election equipment, each
Yeah.
election that occurred over the course of the calendar year would share in that cost. So we wait until the very end of the year until all invoices have been received before we send out our bills.
Thank you for the clarification.
It does seem a little bit backwards to certify an election, which means the election is over with, and you could do that in March or April or May for those special elections. And they get free service basically for the balance of the year. And
Yeah.
I don't understand why the state thinks that's a smart way of maintaining finances.
Well, they want us to equally allocate between elections. And I'll use one example, our software for our tabulation system, that invoice comes in late September each year. And so, we have an idea what that is, but not the exact total. So until we get all the exact totals in and know what challenges we will face throughout the year, we don't have those invoices to account accurately until the end. But yes, the school districts are in close contact with me and other jurisdictions that participate regularly in the spring to make sure that they have good estimates for what those costs are.
So it's primarily the school districts, because there aren't too many other special levies. Every once in a while, a fire district will. I think we had a transit district election.
EMS, fire, yeah, those are the usuals.
And fortunately, those represent a fairly low level of the costs compared to a presidential general election. Then we're not looking at huge numbers, but it still seems odd that they get free use of our services for so many months of the year.
I don't know that I would say fairly low. It seems like everything is very expensive these days, but I like to refer to election costs as turning on the lights. As soon as there is a call for an election, whoever triggered that election automatically assumes an equal portion to the yearly essentials like the tabulation and a certain amount of staffing costs. So, and it really is expensive. I wish I had better news on that end, but it is crazy expensive.
How is equal defined in this case?
So we allocate, say I had 4 elections in the year, 2 spring, 1 primary, 1 general, and my just my tabulation software maintenance bill was, say, $40,000. I think it's roughly 3740, somewhere in there. I take that 40,000 and it's allocated equally to each election. So they all share in that cost. not based on the size of the election, but equally between the elections.
Okay,
Okay, now we're on to the expenses for elections. And as far as their personnel expenses, the personnel expenses are actually a little bit slightly below where we would put it as targeted compared to budget, but it's very similar to where they were this time last year. So I don't see any issues on that. As far as services, their services is slightly above the target. That is partly due to the fact that our internal services are billed at the first of the year. And I don't think there's any other highlights for their expenses. They have budgeted 4 positions that are currently filled.
Okay.
Any questions there? Then they also have a we did do a financial for their reserve, but there's very little activity on the reserve. Miscellaneous actuals are actually greater than budget, so we'll probably present a slight budget amendment for that. All that was budgeted was 500, and they've already have actuals this year at 10,989.
So this capital reserve, you're not going to see a lot of activity again because this is the 15% overhead that by law I'm allowed to charge on all expenses. It is my emergency fund in case it can only be used to purchase capital improvements and technology.
So again, supplies, the expenditures, like Carolyn said, there really is very little in the way of expenditures.
You'll see this fund grow to a very large number because it's typically about every 8 to 10 years that we look at purchasing or going out to bid on new tabulation services. So they typically have a lifespan of 8 to 10 years. And we use this fund to purchase a new system.
I'm told things become much less important as they move into the new year.
But that concludes my financial part. I don't know if Carolyn has other items she wants to bring up.
Yeah, I didn't put together a slideshow for you guys today, but I did want to follow up on the recount since it's been certified now.
oh,
As I said before, the Commissioner of Public Lands race was between the second and third place candidates, was the closest statewide race in a primary in our Washington state history. It was pretty exciting for me. When all was said and done, there were only 49 votes separating the 2 candidates statewide. And first of all, Cowlitz County had 0 variances after completing the recount, but statewide, there were a total of 95 variances that spread across those 6 candidates, undervotes, overvotes, and write-ins. So the end result was a 99.99% accuracy rate, but still, I think 95 variances is too high. Each of those variances was exactly what I brought to you the last time. They were identified as voter intent questions, and those are human errors. We must inspect the ballot front and back prior to tabulating, and it's only the human eye that can catch those and determine what voter intent is prior to tabulation. And unfortunately, in 95 cases, that wasn't done and they were corrected. So the one other variance, there were actually 2 additional ballots found, and that was because they were stuck together. When they go through the scanner to tabulate, the ballots had sticky things on them, and it scanned the front and back of 2 ballots, counting it as one. Again, not saying that was acceptable because we conduct multiple reconciliations between human and machine counts. So more errors, but again, a 99.99% accuracy rate statewide, and none in Cowlitz.
In that case, I assume that the ballot has a registration number on the front somewhere? It seems
It
like
has-
could be.
It
I'm
has
sorry, go ahead.
timing marks, and on the front, yes, it has timing marks to determine the precinct, but it won't differentiate between front and back like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know that. What I'm suggesting is that that can be eliminated with this random identifying mark on the front and the back of the ballot. So that could just be automatically checked. That would be a relatively simple change for the SAO to do at some point.
You know, some counties, and Cowlitz included, we used to have a tabulation system that had serial numbers on the ballots. It's called the HART system. That was our system prior to us moving to clear ballots. So each ballot has a unique serial number printed on it.
And on the back
It
side
has,
too?
yeah, so
So that
it
would
would
work.
have been caught. However, that has good and bad to it as well. And let me tell you, people, the voters don't like those serial numbers. And let me tell you what the voters do with those serial numbers. They take scissors and they cut them out so that they think that their ballot is changed somehow, and they'll mail us back the ballot without the serial numbers. So good and bad to every system. Not any are necessarily foolproof, but I do agree with you that something needs to be included to identify that, or humans need to do a better job of reconciliation.
So Carolyn, first off, congratulations for you and your staff for a perfectly tabulated election.
Thank you.
That's always good news. Were there certain counties that seem to have a greater number of these anomalies that had to be corrected?
Yes, I will say that there are 39 counties in the state. 21 of those counties had variances, and then there were 3 counties where 3/4 of the variances occurred. So I won't call those counties out. However, the Secretary of State is already contacting those counties to review their procedures to make sure that's lessened in the future.
Is it a function of higher populations or smaller
is.
populations and perhaps outdated technology?
Not outdated technology. You're right. Higher populations, you're dealing with a larger number of ballots. You're bringing in a lot more temporary help. These are people that are working on a very part-time basis, know very little about elections, and they're performing one minute task that they don't understand the larger impact that it could have on the end result. And so tighter procedures, more training, those types of things will help.
So all of the counties have the same kind of follow-up for the challenged ballots where there's a missing signature or, you know, some of the other little glitches that I know. I know in our county, we do a really excellent job of contacting those voters who've turned in a ballot that's got problems. Then we
Yes, you're
give them
right.
an opportunity to cure, and some of them refuse to cure. They
Yes.
don't respond, but they're giving up their vote when they refuse to respond. That's their choice.
And you're right, the Cowlitz County has always maintained a
But
lot
we just
of
lost your
voter
voice.
contact. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Cowlitz County has always maintained a lot of voter contact. But as we saw after the big SAO audit of challenged ballots, they took a lot of our best practices and made those mandatory statewide. So this primary was the first election in which it was a requirement now for all counties. And it was a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. But it's a good thing. Voter contact is a good thing. And I'm not sure if you have read the headlines or not, but I know that the GOP has served King County with a lawsuit regarding that challenge process. King County uses an electronic system that I don't believe is used in any other county to assist with correcting those challenges. Now, it is legal, it is in statute that a voter can correct that electronically. Dennis, if you're on a cruise and you voted your ballot, you were diligent to returned it before you left and forgot to sign it, or the signature doesn't match, there's, you know, that we want to make sure that you still have the ability to cure that. And so we would accept an electronic image of your signature. However, King County uses a particular piece of software that other counties don't. So that is currently under scrutiny. I'm not sure how that'll turn out, but it's something to watch.
So that means you can't print the ballots up yet until that court case is determined? 'Cause
Actually, no. No, it doesn't have any bearing. In fact, we sent our ballots to print this morning. Doesn't have any bearing on the printing of ballots, but this would be the way that King County alone processes those signature challenges. So it'll be one to watch. And then I had two things that came to me this morning, believe it or not. I had two bulletins, one from the FBI and one from Homeland Security that I wanted to pass along just so people are aware and diligent. The first one is from the FBI. They're noticing an uptick in people posting fraudulent information out there, trying to undermine the process. What they're doing is requesting voter data, which we all know is public information. Any one of you can request all of our voter registration information at any time. They're posting it online saying, see, I hacked into the system. It's been compromised, and that's not true. So I just ask people to be vigilant. Call the elections office if you hear something and you're curious or have questions. And unfortunately, I got a post from Homeland Security that they are monitoring a lot of social media chatter that is encouraging people of various methods to tamper with ballot boxes in the upcoming general election, which include, well, I'm not gonna list off all the ways the bad guys can interact with our ballot boxes, but I just want you to know that, you know, be alert. Let us know if you see something like that on social media. I've already contacted all of our local law enforcement officials. I work very closely with the chiefs in each of the cities to let them know that this is what's going around social media, and asking them to take additional patrols around our boxes. And I am looking at putting cameras on the boxes, but let me tell you, that is a tremendous lift if you think about what Wi-Fi am I going to tap into, whose post am I going to install that camera on, and you know, permits and things like that. I'm going to have to work with legal to get some good agreements together and see how that can move forward. But I think it's a good idea.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
You have any questions for me? I did notice that you always put me last on the agenda. I like to think that you're saving the best for last, but don't say anything,
That's the
Arn.
reason.
Of course. Thanks, Carolyn.
You guys have a good day.
You too. That takes care of it? Okay, we're running behind, so we might just move right into agenda review. I know we got people out of their offices and stuff, so
I'm actually first on that.
I saw that. You
That-
put yourself at
so-
first. Yeah.
I have an item for tomorrow's public meeting, and it's the beginning of our budget workshops and public, and with that, we also have public hearings for setting our property tax assessment discussion. That would be November 12th. Public hearing, and then a public hearing for our December 3rd for the actual 2025. And that's an amended budget because it's part of the biennial, which we had already approved the full biennial. So we'll be requesting the board place on file a notice of our budget workshops and request for a public hearing. So that's my agenda item.
Corrections. Looking down through here, what we have.
Morning, Commissioners. We on the agenda for tomorrow, we have an amendment with our Washington State DOC contract. This amendment simply allows us to charge or bill DOC for the last day of incarceration, which in the past hasn't been the case. Any questions?
What brought the change? Not that I care.
I would suspect, counties have complained about this for a
I've
while.
complained, and so
and, yeah.
then they've made the change.
They
on
finally
it.
made the change.
Okay.
You were there that whole time only for the 3 minutes or 2 minutes with apologies.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see, oh, there she is. Sorry, Jennifer, I didn't. Wasn't trying to overlook you.
It's easy and short.
Good morning, Jennifer Mendoza with Cowlitz County Noxious Weeds. For tomorrow's agenda, we have 3 items on the consent agenda, all related to project work. The first one is with the WSDA. It's a grant to accomplish Class A treatments for our landowners. The grant is a total of $5,000, and we will be able to help somewhere between, I'm estimating 75 and 100 landowners with treatments on false brome and Class A thistles. We have 2 or 3 species we're dealing with. So that's a grant. We usually do this work through an annual grant. So this is the annual grant coming through again. The second item we have is an agreement with the State Department of Fish and Wildlife to help maintain the knotweed infestation at the Fallert Creek Hatchery. It's a very small contract that extends, I think till 2031, if I remember correctly. Essentially, they've been doing some work to fix the intake and outtake at the hatchery, and there's knotweed in that area. So this project allows us to maintain the knotweed so that it doesn't interfere with their structures. It's a very small amount. It probably takes our staff about an hour or 2 to complete the project. So it's not a very large thing, but it is an ongoing project as part of their construction funding. And the third agreement that we have is with the Washington State Department of Ecology for a WCC crew next year. We are looking at obtaining a crew for about 3 weeks. These folks are on contract, or they do a project with the WCC for a whole year. And we're looking at having that crew work with us for 3 weeks to accomplish hawkweed and other treatments up in the Mount St. Helens Monument. So that will also be part of our Mount St. Helens project. Are there any questions on either of these 3 projects?
Is the Conservation Corps crew a new program that you've applied for? Have you been using them over the years?
We haven't been using them directly.
Okay.
The DNR has sponsored a crew to work with us for knotweed, and that's been going really well. And so because we've liked the interactions with that crew, we applied for our own crew to help with our monument
Okay,
project.
so that is a new, I was
It is a new
thinking I hadn't
expense.
seen that before.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is a new expense for our program, but it should be completely covered through our Mount St. Helens grants.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Jennifer. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Yep, good to see you.
Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Savannah Clement, Public Services. So today I have one item for facilities. It's on the consent agenda. It is our contract agreement with Department of Enterprise Services in conjunction with MILIG to provide that investment grade audit. Just as a reminder, the board did give Mike Moss the approval to sign this back in August. So this is just making sure it's on record.
Okay.
Susan Eugenis, County Engineer. I have on the consent agenda the contract completion for the Slide Creek Road realignment that was completed by Compass Construction in June. The contract originally came in at a bid of $278,902, and the final cost ended up being $251,480. And that is mainly because we included a bid item for rock excavation. So we were anticipating the material to be rock out there, and it turned out it was not. So doing road excavation is cheaper than doing rock excavation. So we did the same amount of excavation, but there wasn't rock, which also facilitated the contractor completing the contract in 5 working days. So we are very pleased with this project. They came in, they came out, got out, so. Then the other 2 items that came through Public Works as a pass-through were the diking CDID number 3 and the Drainage Improvement District number 1 budgets for certification. Both districts are keeping their assessments pretty much status quo to maintain their ongoing work and projects that they have out there.
Are those the 2 Kelso
Those are the
districts?
2 Kelso
That's
districts.
the ones that you ran.
Yes. The North Kelso is the one I run. CDID 3 has its own board. So
Okay.
South Kelso has its own board.
And you're the board for CDID 1.
Yes, for Drainage Improvement District number 1, yes. You, the board, appoint a county engineer to be the sole supervisor of the district.
That's good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we have the
Thanks.
real meat of next week's, of tomorrow's meeting.
Well, and just remember, Carolyn said we saved the best for last, so.
You gotta be careful, because now we've got public works staff mad at you.
I know it, I know
They're
it.
not the best.
Okay, good morning. Gina James, Health and Human Services. We do have several items on the agenda for tomorrow. They are all related. The first item is an amendment to our contract with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services specifically the Developmental Disabilities Administration. So this is in relation to our DD contracts. So we have a contract with the state for adult employment and day services as well as child development services. So the amendment is adding the funding for this current fiscal year. We then have the pass-through contracts with our providers. So we have a contract on the agenda with LifeWorks, Compass, Goodwill, Employers Overload, and Progress Center. So we're passing these state funds down to the providers to provide these programs. It is up a little bit. This current fiscal year allocation is slightly higher than last year, primarily because of the change in the service. I don't know if you recall, there's an employment service and a day service, and historically it's been one or the other, and now clients can choose both. And so there's been an increase in the funding there to support that.
So I have a pretty good understanding of the operations of the different programs, except for Compass Career Solutions. That's $250,000 a year. What do they do for that $250,000?
So they have clients that they serve. They have individuals that they serve in both employment and day programs. So they serve about 15 clients in employment and 23 in the day program.
And where are they housed? I mean, I thought they had a single office in the annex and then they moved, right?
They did. So they're over in Longview now. They're not too far from LifeWorks. I can't remember the exact street, but they're down over in Longview now.
And so that daycare center is there as well as the job training or job sites?
They do.
Like LifeWorks does both. I mean, they've got some businesses and as well as the care center.
They provide some respite on site and some work opportunities. The bulk of their work, though, for these programs is out in the community and community-based settings.
Thank you.
So it looks like most of these are disability, employment, and day services until we get to the progress. Yeah, that place, Progress Center. I've often wondered, what is it that the Progress Center is able to do with a baby?
Yeah, so the Progress Center can provide a variety of services. Anyone can refer a baby, could be referred, for example, from a physician or a parent or a child care center if they notice some type of developmental delay or milestone delay in that baby. It could be a motor skills. It could even be, the tracking.
Understood, yeah.
Yeah. So they might get referred and start to work with the family on what kinds of activities they can do with that baby or child to help increase that development or try to help encourage development in that particular area.
So they really, in truth, are dealing with the mom and dad.
Right.
Okay.
Yep, it's very family-based, so they'll sit down with the family. They'll do an observation of the child. They have certain specialists that will observe, and then they'll sit down with the family and talk about the different services that they can provide, what it could look like, and the family chooses to participate or not, or how much. And they offer in-home visits, so they can come into the home and help give ideas for maybe structuring a household if there is, mobility challenges and things like that. So
I think that's a good distinction between the programs. The others are working with the individual themselves. And this one, I think that's correct. It's more working with the parents on how to.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good distinction to make,
yeah.
So does the Progress Center do work with kids that may be autistic? Rather than just simply delayed, I mean, it's just their development has.
Yeah, so they may end up, their services are just birth to 3. So they may end up working with children on the spectrum and the families.
And the other programs also work with older people with
Mhm.
autism.
Yep.
And the common denominator is low income. That's what qualifies it for the service.
Yes, there's an income threshold. Yep. And we're not the only funder for this service. It's kind of a braided funding that goes into that service. Mhm.
I get very sensitive when it comes to children because there's so much that we assume that oftentimes isn't true. Like, believe it or not, I am told that I didn't start to speak until after 3 years of age. I know it's hard to imagine, but so it would, these classifications in the hands of the correct people, it's a good thing. In the hands of the bureaucrats, it's not a good thing. And I just don't know what category I would put something like this in.
Yeah. Well, it is.
Can you help me with some numbers tomorrow?
Sure. It is a voluntary service that's offered, so families can choose to engage or not. It's not like a state required program or anything like that. Let me see. The Progress Center, they typically, let's see, they have about 340 children enrolled. We end up reimbursing for maybe a little less than half of who they have enrolled just because of the service. There is other funding, and if they can bill insurance for any of that, they will, things like that. So, and it is just that birth to 3 age range, and hopefully they're, transitioning into a preschool or other type of program where they can continue with some support.
Would you be able to, by tomorrow, supply us the categories of things they see? Like, for example, if a child is blind, I know you can identify that fairly quickly, but autism is one of those things where I'm like, I'm not even sure. Yeah, I just don't know how you determine that. And so I'd like to know what categories they put their clients in and some numbers if possible.
Okay, I'll see. I'm not sure if I can have it for tomorrow. I have that breakdown for the adult group, but I don't for the children's. I'll see if I can get some of that.
How does, let me give you an example, phrase the question just so I understand. I know a young man and I know the Life Works and they do the dog treats, and I know he went there and worked and did that, but I also know a young man by me that did an internship at like a horse farm or a person's farm to work with animals.
Okay.
So, and I'm assuming those type of stuff would be eligible through these, but say this horse farm or this farm have to be registered somehow, or how do they tap it, or is it more based on the individual?
So it's very much based on the individual. It's also, they'll look at what type of job the individual wants to have and what skills that they can help build, so it's applicable to the type of job that they want to have. So they could do some skill building at a horse barn, for example, that would, cleaning out the stalls or whatever it might look like, feeding the animals, caring for the animals. That wouldn't necessarily, they can do some of that skill building. It's called job development. So they can do some of that skill building early on to help prepare them for an actual job. When it comes to getting employed, then they have to be employed just like you or I would. So it has to be a business. They have to get a paycheck. I mean, all of those things. And so They wouldn't be able to, for example, be like paid under the table through this
Right.
program. They may do that on, individuals can do that on their own time, of course, but
So it's more correct to say they work with an individual and they put out and say, hey, we have a child that would like to do this, and the business says, hey, I'd take them on. It's not so much a business says, hey, I need some work here. Do you have?
it can happen both ways. So they can, sometimes businesses will customize jobs depending on if they notice they have certain tasks that can be performed by somebody else. They might pull those tasks and look for a supported employee to be able to perform those tasks. Sometimes individuals are applying for, whatever job is posted at an organization, and they go and advocate for being able to perform those tasks. So it can happen kind of both
But
ways.
the biggest function is on the individual, because we've heard some where the business has to qualify with the state to be able to take some things, you know what I mean? But this is really more based on the individual.
This is more based on the individual, and the business through this program doesn't get paid. It's, this program is providing the support for the individual to be able to do their job tasks and get a job, and hopefully maintain that job. So as long as a business is licensed by the state, as a business and employing employees, then an individual could be hired. We have about 50 local businesses that have someone hired with this program. That's pretty neat.
And this money can also go to pay for, what do we call them, the job coaches, the
Mhm.
adults who are by the disabled person to assist, depending on this type of skills they're able to do.
Right.
And the business doesn't pay the coach. This program would pay the coach.
Correct, right.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I just recall remembering someone with disabilities in a wheelchair with a sign advertising a business, and the coach was standing with him. I saw them in tandem all the time. So, hopefully that was meaningful work for the disabled person. So,
Yep, I think that individual maintained that job for a number of years. Yep.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Tina.
Mr. Chairman, I did have one miscellaneous item to bring up.
Absolutely.
On the consent agenda, you'll notice the resignation of Bob Gregory from the Public Facilities Board.
Yeah.
And I know we have seen an application from Claire Hauge for that position. And unless there are some objections, I'd like us to go ahead and authorize that appointment to be made.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of them on PFD, and they spoke very highly of Claire and really wanted her on there. So I actually signed off on mine this morning.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Great.
Anything else, gentlemen? Okay. We will adjourn till the morning.
Super.